The classroom fell silent as Hyun pressed the button on his datapad. Images appeared on the wall screen one after another. Old photographs from Earth's history. A city in ruins, people with dirty faces standing in front of broken buildings, a soldier holding a small child, a family gathered around a table with very little food. The alien students watched with growing confusion. Most of them had never seen anything like this before. The Vraxians, a species of powerful predators with dark scales and sharp eyes, looked especially puzzled. Their culture was different from humans in many ways. Crix leaned forward in his seat, his tail twitching with curiosity. He was young for a Vraxian, barely past his 10th cycle, but already showing the intelligence his species was known for. Next to him, his sibling Talva watched the images with quiet attention. The photographs continued to change. Hyun showed them pictures of natural disasters. Storms that destroyed homes, fires that consumed forests. Then came images of celebrations, but strange ones. People with tears in their eyes hugging each other in front of memorial walls. Elderly humans touching names carved in stone. Hyun stood beside the screen, his face calm. He was not a large man by human standards, but he carried himself with a quiet confidence that even the predator species respected. His dark hair was starting to show gray at the temples, and there were lines around his eyes that spoke of many years and many experiences. "These are important to my people," Hyun said simply. "We keep them. We look at them. We share them with our children and our children's children." A Florian student, with her flower-like appendages drooping in distress, raised a tentacle. "Teacher Hyun, why do humans keep pictures of sad things?" "It seems painful," Hyun nodded. "It is painful sometimes, but we keep them anyway." Crix could not contain himself any longer. The young Vraxian stood up, his claws clicking on the desk's surface. "That makes no sense. Why would you want to remember bad things? In my culture, we forget. We push away painful memories. They make us weak. They slow us down. A hunter cannot think about old wounds when chasing prey." Other students murmured agreement. The Thelian in the back row with his crystal-like skin spoke up. "My people also believe this. We focus on the present and the future. The past is gone. Why carry it?" Hyun smiled, and several students shifted uncomfortably. Humans smiled often, but many alien species still found it strange. It showed teeth, which in most cultures was a sign of aggression. But humans smiled when they were happy or amused, or sometimes when they were sad. It was confusing. "That is an excellent question, Crix," Hyun said, "and I promise I will answer it. But first, I want you all to think about something. What makes your species strong?" Crix answered immediately. "Our strength, our speed, our ability to hunt and fight without fear." "And how do you stay strong?" Hyun asked. "We train. We practice. We forget weakness." Talva spoke up for the first time, her voice softer than her siblings. "We are taught from birth to let go of things that hurt us. Emotional pain is a poison. It must be purged." Hyun walked slowly between the rows of desks. The classroom was designed to accommodate many different species, with varying sizes of seats and environmental controls for different atmospheric needs. It was one of the few places in the galaxy where such different beings could learn together. "Your people are wise," Hyun said. "For Vraxians, forgetting trauma makes perfect sense. You are hunters. You are warriors. You need to be sharp and quick. Old pain would slow you down." Crix nodded, pleased that the human understood. "But humans are different," Hyun continued. He stopped at the window that looked out over the academy grounds. Ships from 100 worlds were docked in the distance, their designs as varied as the species that built them. "We are not the strongest species. We are not the fastest. We do not have natural weapons or armor. We do not have telepathy or the ability to survive in extreme environments without help." "Then how did your species survive?" asked a Drellian student, his multiple eyes blinking in sequence. Hyun turned back to face the class. "We remember. That is our strength. We remember everything. The good and the bad, the victories and the defeats, the joy and the pain. And we learn from all of it." He pulled up another image. This one was different. It showed a human face, young and smiling in some kind of uniform. The photograph was old, the color slightly faded. "This is my brother Day," Hyun said quietly. "This picture is 20 years old." The class was silent now. Even Crix had settled back into his seat, sensing something important was coming. "My brother is gone," Hyun said. "He died during a war. A bad war where many people on both sides lost their lives. I have many pictures of him. Some from before the war, when he was happy. Some from during, when things were hard. I look at these pictures often. But why? Talva asked, her voice gentle. Doesn't it hurt? Yes, Hyun said. It hurts every time. But I need that hurt. Because with the hurt comes memory. And with memory comes everything else. I remember his laugh. I remember his terrible jokes. I remember how he was brave when he was scared. I remember the last thing he said to me. All of that is precious to me. If I forgot the pain, I would forget him. Crix frowned, trying to understand. But you could remember the good parts and forget the bad parts. Many species have technology for this, selective memory suppression. We could, Hyun agreed. But then we would lose something important. The bad parts and the good parts are connected. They are the same story. If I forget how Day died, I forget why his life mattered. I forget what I learned from losing him. I forget how to be strong in the way he taught me to be strong. The young Vraxian shook his head. I still do not understand. It sounds like torture. Hyun smiled again, but this time it was different. Sadder, more knowing. Perhaps it is in a way. But it is also something else. Something that makes humans what we are. Tomorrow, I will tell you a story. A true story from my life, and maybe then you will understand why we keep pictures. Why we remember. Why we cannot forget even when forgetting would be easier. He turned off the screen. The classroom lights brightened. Class dismissed. Think about what we discussed today. Think about what you would do if you could never forget anything bad that happened to you. Would you be stronger or weaker? The students filed out slowly, talking among themselves in various languages and communication methods. Crix and Talva walked together, their tails intertwined in the Vraxian gesture of sibling closeness. He is strange, even for a human, Crix said. Yes, Talva agreed. But I want to hear his story. So do I, Crix admitted. I want to understand. Because if humans are weak enough to need painful memories, how did they become strong enough to join the Galactic Coalition? How did they survive long enough to reach the stars? Talva looked back at the classroom, where Hyun was gathering his materials. Maybe that is what he will tell us tomorrow. In the empty classroom, Hyun held the datapad with his brother's picture on it. He touched the screen gently, as if touching a face he could no longer reach. I miss you, little brother, he whispered, but I will never forget you. That is my promise. That is the human way. He put the pad away and left the classroom, ready to prepare the story he would tell tomorrow. A story about war and loss and survival. A story about why humans keep pictures of the things that hurt them most. A story about remembering. The next morning brought an unexpected visitor to the Galactic Coalition Academy. Elder Thros arrived on a diplomatic transport, his massive form drawing attention from every species on the grounds. He was old by Vraxian standards, his scales darker and more weathered than those of younger members of his kind, but his eyes were sharp, and his movements still carried the deadly grace of a predator. Crix and Talva were summoned to meet with him in one of the private conference rooms. They entered nervously, tails low in respect. Elder Thros was a legend among their people, a warrior who had fought in the Coalition Wars and earned more honors than most Vraxians could count. Young ones, Thros said, his voice deep and rumbling. I heard about your human teacher's lesson yesterday. About the photographs, about remembering, Crix nodded. Yes, Elder, we are trying to understand, but it is difficult. Thros gestured for them to sit. The room was designed for large species with reinforced furniture and high ceilings. That is why I came. Your instructors contacted me. They thought I should speak with you about our way, about the Vraxian way of dealing with pain and memory. Talva leaned forward. We know the basic teachings, Elder, but perhaps we do not understand them deeply enough. The old Vraxian stood and walked to the window. Outside, students of various species moved between buildings, carrying datapads and conversing in the universal trade language. Our people have survived for thousands of generations as apex predators. We hunt, we fight, we dominate our environment. This is not cruelty. It is simply our nature. He turned back to face them. But to remain effective predators, we must be sharp. A hunter with a mind full of fear and pain cannot focus on the prey. A warrior haunted by past losses cannot react quickly enough in battle. So we developed ways to let go. The cleansing rituals, Crix said. Yes. When a Vraxian experiences trauma, we have procedures. chemical treatments that suppress the emotional weight of memories, mental disciplines that allow us to compartmentalize and discard what we do not need. We keep the skills and tactics we learned, but we release the pain and fear attached to them. Thross sat down again, his massive frame settling into the reinforced chair. I have done this many times. I have lost hunting partners. I have seen friends die in battle. I have failed in missions and watched innocents suffer. Each time I went through the cleansing. Each time I let go of the burden. This is how I remained strong. This is how I could continue to serve. Talva looked troubled. But Elder, do you remember those friends? The ones who died? Thross was quiet for a moment. I remember that they existed. I remember their names and their ranks. I remember tactical lessons I learned from serving with them, but I do not remember their faces clearly. I do not remember how I felt when they died. Those things were cleansed. They had to be. The humans would say you lost something important, Crick said carefully. Perhaps, Thross acknowledged, but I gained something more important. I gained the ability to continue, to move forward, to protect others without being paralyzed by past failures. Tell me, young ones, which is more valuable? To remember the dead or to save the living? It was a difficult question. Crix and Talva looked at each other, unsure how to answer. Later that day, the siblings joined other students in the common area. The space was filled with beings from across the galaxy, all sharing the Academy's mission of fostering understanding between species. Crix found himself discussing the topic with a group of mixed-species students. A Florian named Vessa spoke first. My people also believe in letting go. We are a peaceful species, but we experience trauma from natural disasters and accidents. We use meditation and chemical therapy to ease painful memories. It helps us maintain emotional balance. A Drellian student with shimmering blue skin added, My species uses communal memory sharing. When something traumatic happens, we share the burden across our collective. No single individual has to carry the full weight. It is distributed and diluted until it becomes manageable. All of these methods make sense, Crick said. They are practical and efficient. So why do humans insist on carrying everything themselves? Why do they cling to pain? No one had a good answer. In another part of the academy, Hyun was meeting with Rin, another human teacher. She specialized in xenopsychology, the study of alien minds and cultures. They sat in her office drinking tea from Earth. The Cubs are struggling with this concept, Rin said. I have been monitoring their discussions. They genuinely cannot understand why we keep painful memories. Hyun nodded. I know, and I'm not sure I can explain it in a way that makes sense to them. Their brains are literally wired differently than ours. The Vraxian neural structure is optimized for immediate threat response and tactical thinking. Emotional attachment is a liability for them. But for humans, emotional attachment is a survival trait, Rin said. Our memories, even painful ones, helped us survive as a species. They taught us what to fear, what to avoid, how to prepare for danger. They built our communities and our cultures. Yes, but how do I make a Vraxian cub understand that? Hyun asked. They see it as weakness. Rin was quiet for a moment, then said, Maybe you need to show them that our memories are not just about holding on to pain. They are about learning and growing from it, about becoming stronger because of what we survived, not despite it. That is what I plan to do tomorrow, Hyun said. I am going to tell them about Haven's Gate, about the siege, about Dae and Jiwoo and everything that happened there. Rin looked concerned. Are you sure? That is very personal, very painful. That is exactly why I need to tell them. They need to see that humans do not keep these memories because we enjoy suffering. We keep them because they made us who we are. They taught us things we could not learn any other way. It will be difficult for them to hear, Rin warned. I know, but it will also be honest. And if there is one thing I have learned about teaching alien species, it is that honesty works better than any lesson plan. That evening, Crix and Talva returned to their quarters. They shared a living space designed for Vraxian comfort, with temperature controls set higher than most species preferred and reinforced sleeping platforms. I have been thinking, Talva said as they prepared for rest. Elder Thross is strong. He has accomplished great things. He has saved many lives. But when he spoke about his lost friends, there was something empty in his voice. Because he does not carry the pain, Crix said. That is the point. Yes, but he also does not carry the love. Or the connection. He remembers names but not faces. Facts but not feelings. Is that truly strength? Or is it just absence? Crix frowned. You sound like a human. Maybe humans understand something we do not, Talva said quietly. Maybe there are different kinds of strength. Or maybe they are just weaker than us and have convinced themselves that their weakness is actually strength, Crix countered. But even as he said it, he felt uncertain. Before sleep, Talva asked one more question. Brother, if you died tomorrow, would you want me to cleanse my memories of you? To forget how I felt about you? Crix was silent for a long time. Finally, he said, No, I would want you to remember. Even if it hurt? Even if it hurt. Then maybe we already understand more about the human way than we thought, Talva said softly. In his own quarters, Hyun was preparing his lesson for the next day. He pulled up files on his personal terminal. Old photographs from 20 years ago. Reports from the Haven's Gate siege. Casualty lists, commendations, and personal images. His brother's face. Jiwoo's smile. The child who had drawn pictures on the bunker wall. He did not look forward to sharing this story. It was painful even after all these years, but it was necessary. The young beings in his class needed to understand. Not just Vraxians, but all of them. They needed to understand what it meant to be human. What it meant to survive not by forgetting, but by remembering. Tomorrow, he said to himself. Tomorrow I will show them why we keep pictures. He closed the files and tried to sleep, knowing that tomorrow would bring difficult memories back to the surface. But that was the human way. To face the pain. To remember. To learn. To survive. The classroom was full when Hyun arrived. Word had spread about today's lesson, and students who were not even enrolled in his class had asked permission to attend. They filled every available seat and some stood at the back. All of them were quiet, waiting. Hyun set down his datapad and looked at the young faces before him. So many species, so many different ways of thinking and being. But today they would all hear a human story. A true story. 20 years ago, Hyun began, I was not a teacher. I was a combat medic in the Human Defense Forces. I was 24 years old, barely trained and scared most of the time. But I had a job to do, so I did it. He pressed a button and the screen behind him lit up. An image of a planet appeared. Green and blue, beautiful from orbit. This is Haven's Gate. It was a colony world on the edge of human space. 10,000 people lived there. Farmers mostly. Families. Children. My younger brother Day was there studying agriculture. He wanted to help the colony grow better crops. Another image appeared. A young man with a bright smile wearing civilian clothes and holding up a strange-looking vegetable. That is Day. He was 20 years old, full of energy and ideas. He sent me pictures every week telling me about his work. He was happy there. Crix watched carefully. Already he could see where this story was going and he felt uncomfortable. Then the Korthian Empire attacked. They wanted the planet for strategic reasons. It was on a trade route they needed to control. The fact that people lived there did not matter to them. The screen changed again. Now it showed smoke and fire. Buildings damaged. People running. The attack came without warning. Orbital bombardment first, then ground troops. The colony defense force was small, maybe 200 fighters. My unit was stationed nearby, so we were sent to help. We landed during the bombardment. I still remember the sound, like thunder that never stopped. Hyun's voice remained steady, but something in his eyes had changed. He was there again in his memory, living it. We set up a medical station in an underground bunker. The wounded started coming immediately. So many wounded. Burns, shrapnel injuries, broken bones, collapsed lungs. We worked for hours without stopping. I was covered in blood, but it was not mine. A Florian student made a distressed sound. Hyun paused. I can stop if this is too much. No, Crix said firmly. Continue. We need to hear this, Hyun nodded. On the second day, Day found me. He was helping evacuate civilians, guiding them to the bunkers. He was terrified, but he kept working. He said someone had to help. We had 10 minutes together. 10 minutes to talk. Then he went back out to find more people who needed help. The screen showed a photograph. 2 men in a bunker, dirty and tired, but smiling at the camera. Brothers. That is the last picture I have of us together. Another soldier took it. I am glad he did. The siege lasted 3 weeks. The Korthian forces surrounded the main settlement. We were cut off from our ships, from reinforcements, from supplies. We had to ration everything. Food, water, medical supplies. We ran out of pain medication on day 5. After that, I had to perform surgeries while patients screamed. I can still hear those screams. The classroom was completely silent now. Even the species that did not understand human facial expressions could sense the weight of what Hyun was saying. My best friend was a man named Ji-woo. He was a soldier, a good one. He was funny and brave, and he always shared his rations with the civilian children. He kept them entertained with stories and magic tricks when they were scared. Another photograph appeared. A man with kind eyes making a funny face at the camera while a small child laughed beside him. On day 16, the Korthians broke through the eastern perimeter. They were pushing toward the main bunker where we had the civilians. Ji-woo and 5 other soldiers held them off. They fought for 2 hours, giving us time to evacuate people through the service tunnels. All 6 of them died. Hyun's voice wavered slightly, but he continued. Ji-woo died so that 83 civilians could escape. I know the exact number because I treated them as they came through. Children, elderly, pregnant women. All alive because Ji-woo and his squad gave their lives. The screen showed a pair of metal tags on a chain. Military identification tags. These are Ji-woo's tags. He gave them to me before that last battle. He said if anything happened, I should make sure his mother got them. He was joking. We both knew he would be fine. But he gave them to me anyway, just in case. Talva spoke up, her voice shaking. Teacher Hyun, please. This is too painful. Why are you telling us this? Because you asked why we keep pictures, Hyun said gently. You asked why we remember. This is why. He pulled up more photographs. A child's drawing on a bunker wall, showing stick figures holding hands under a sun. A makeshift memorial with names written on pieces of metal. A group of exhausted soldiers and civilians sitting together sharing a meal. On day 19, my brother went out with an evacuation team. They were trying to reach a group of civilians trapped in a collapsed building. The Korthians had set up ambush positions. Day's team was hit by an artillery strike. None of them survived. The photograph of Day's smiling face appeared again. I learned about it 3 hours later. Someone had to tell me my little brother was dead. I had patients to treat. I had work to do. So I put the grief aside and kept working. I worked for 6 more hours before I could stop. Before I could break down. Crick stood up suddenly. Stop. Please stop. This is cruel. Why are you doing this to yourself? Why are you doing this to us? Hyun looked at the young Vraxian. Because this is the answer to your question. Sit down, Crix, let me finish. Crix sat, but he looked angry and distressed. On day 21, coalition reinforcements finally broke through. The siege was lifted. We evacuated the survivors. Out of 10,000 people, 6,214 survived. My unit lost 40% of its personnel. The colony was destroyed. It took years to rebuild. The screen showed one final photograph. A group of dirty, exhausted humans standing in front of a damaged bunker. They looked broken and tired, but they were alive. This picture was taken the day after we were evacuated. I am in it somewhere. I do not even remember it being taken, but someone thought it was important to document that moment, the moment we survived. Hyun turned off the screen and faced the class. I have told you this story not to make you sad or uncomfortable. I have told you because you need to understand something about humans. We do not keep these photographs because we want to suffer. We keep them because they are proof. Proof of what? Talva asked quietly. Proof that we survived. Proof that people like Ji-woo and Dai existed and mattered. Proof that 6,000 people are alive today because others sacrificed for them. Proof that humans can endure things that should break us and we can keep going. Hyun walked to the front of his desk and sat on its edge, a casual human gesture. When I look at Day's picture, yes, it hurts. Every single time it hurts. But I also remember why he died. He died helping others. He died being brave. He died being the best version of himself. If I forgot that pain, I would forget his sacrifice. I would forget the lesson he taught me about courage. I would forget who he was. When I look at Ji-woo's picture, I remember a man who made children laugh during a war. I remember someone who shared his food when he was hungry. I remember a friend who died a hero. If I erased that memory, I would lose him completely. The pain is the price I pay to keep him alive in here. Hyun touched his chest over his heart. Humans are not stronger than Vraxians physically. We are not faster. We do not have your natural weapons. But we have this. We have the ability to carry our dead with us, to learn from our worst moments, to transform pain into strength. That is how my species survived long enough to reach the stars. We remember everything, the good and the bad, and we become stronger because of it, not despite it. The classroom was silent for a long moment. Then Talva stood up. Teacher Hyun, I think I understand now. But I have a question. Does it ever get easier? Does the pain ever go away? Hyun smiled, and this time no one was disturbed by it. No, it does not go away. But you learn to carry it. You learn that you are strong enough to bear it. And that knowledge makes you strong enough to face new challenges. Because you know you have survived worse. Crick stood as well. I do not think Vraxians could do this. We would break? Perhaps, Hyun said. Or perhaps you have never needed to. Your species has other strengths. This is ours. Different species, different solutions. But now you understand why we keep pictures. We remember the things we survived, Talva said softly. Yes, Hyun agreed. We remember the things we survived. 3 days passed after Hyun's story. Crix found he could not stop thinking about it. The images haunted him in a way he did not understand. Vraxians did not dwell on things. They processed and moved forward. But something about Hyun's words had lodged in his mind like a splinter. He found himself standing outside Hyun's office after classes ended. The door was open. Hyun sat at his desk reviewing student work on his data pad. He looked up when Crix's shadow fell across the doorway. Come in, Crix, Hyun said, setting down the pad. The young Vraxian entered cautiously. Teacher Hyun, I need to speak with you. About your story. About human memory, of course. Sit down. Crix settled into one of the reinforced chairs. His claws clicked nervously on the armrest. I have been thinking about what you told us. About your brother and your friend. About the pain you still carry. And I have come to a conclusion. Hyun waited patiently. I think humans are suffering needlessly, Crix said. The words came out in a rush. You do not have to carry this burden. There are technologies, medical procedures, psychological treatments. You could suppress these painful memories. You could keep the knowledge and skills you learned but remove the emotional pain. You could be free. The young Vraxian leaned forward earnestly. I am not saying this to be cruel. I am saying this because I care about you as my teacher. I have seen how it hurts you to remember. Why would you choose to hurt when you could choose peace? Hyun was quiet for a moment. Then he smiled gently. That is a kind thought, Crix, and I appreciate your concern. But I think you are still not understanding something important. Come with me. I want to introduce you to some people. They left the office together and walked across the academy grounds. The afternoon sun was setting, casting long shadows. They entered the administration building and took a lift to the counseling center. In a comfortable office filled with plants from various worlds, they found Counselor Buell. She was a human woman in her 50s with gray hair and warm eyes. She was speaking with another human, a woman in a security officer's uniform. Buell, Sora, this is Crix, Hyun said, one of my students. He has questions about human memory and trauma. I thought you could help answer them better than I can. Buell smiled and gestured for them to sit. Of course. Hello, Crix, I am a trauma counselor. I help people process difficult experiences, and this is Captain Sora. She works in Academy security, but she is also a veteran like Hyun. Sora nodded at Crix. She was younger than Hyun, perhaps in her early 30s, with strong features and a calm presence. Crix believes humans should use technology to suppress painful memories, Hyun explained. He thinks we are suffering needlessly. I see, Bayul said. Crix, may I ask you something? In Vraxian culture, when you suppress memories, what happens to the lessons those experiences taught you? Crix thought carefully. We retain tactical knowledge, skills, strategic thinking, but we remove the emotional component. So you remember what happened, but not how it felt? Correct, Bayul nodded. For humans, that would not work. Our emotional responses and our learning are deeply connected. We cannot separate them without losing something essential. Let me explain. She pulled up a holographic display showing a simplified human brain. When humans experience trauma, our brains create very strong memories. These memories are painful, yes, but they are also incredibly detailed and powerful. They teach us about danger, about resilience, about what we are capable of surviving. Sora spoke up. I can give you a personal example. 10 years ago, I was in a ship collision. A transport I was on was hit by debris during a combat evacuation. 17 people died. I was injured badly. Broken bones, internal bleeding. I spent 4 months recovering. She pulled out her own data pad and showed Crix photographs. Images of a destroyed ship. Medical images showing severe injuries. And then later images of recovery, physical therapy, learning to walk again. I remember every moment of that day, Sora said. The fear, the pain, watching people die. It was the worst experience of my life, but I would not erase it even if I could. Why not? Crix asked, genuinely confused. Because that experience changed me. It taught me things I could not have learned any other way. It taught me that I am stronger than I thought. It taught me to value every day I am alive. It taught me patience and compassion for others who are suffering. She scrolled to more photographs. A graduation ceremony. A wedding. 2 small children. After I recovered, I applied to officer training. I became a security specialist. I met my partner during that training. We got married. We have 2 children now. None of that would have happened if I had not survived that collision, and I would not value it as much if I did not remember how close I came to losing everything. Crix stared at the photographs. But the pain is part of the story, Sora said firmly. It is not the whole story. That is what I think you are not understanding. Humans do not focus only on the painful parts. We remember everything together. The pain and the healing, the loss and the growth, the fear and the courage. Biol brought up another display. This is what we call post-traumatic growth. It is a human psychological concept. When humans experience severe trauma, if we process it properly, we do not just return to our previous level of functioning. We actually grow beyond it. We become stronger, wiser, more compassionate. The trauma, terrible as it is, becomes a catalyst for positive change. But surely some humans want to forget, Crix said. Surely some would choose to erase their pain if they could. Some do struggle, Biol admitted. Some humans experience trauma so severe that it damages their ability to function. We have treatments for that. But they are not about erasing memory. They are about helping people process and integrate their experiences, about learning to live with what happened. Hyun spoke up. When I returned from Haven's Gate, I could barely function for months. I had nightmares. I could not concentrate. I felt guilty for surviving when so many died. But Biol and others like her helped me, not by making me forget, but by helping me understand what I experienced and what it meant. The memories are still painful, Biol said. They always will be. But Hyun learned to carry them in a healthy way. He learned to honor his brother and his friend by remembering them well. He learned to use his experience to help others. He became a teacher because of what he survived, not despite it. Crix sat quietly, processing this information. His Vraxian mind struggled with the concept. It went against everything his culture taught. I think I am beginning to understand, he said slowly. But I am not sure Vraxians could do this. Our psychology is different. Of course, Sora said, and that is fine. Different species, different solutions. Vraxians are efficient and practical. You remove what you do not need. Humans are different. We keep everything and find ways to use it. Neither way is wrong. They are just different. But here is something important, Biol added. What works for one species might not work for another. But understanding how other species cope with trauma helps us all. It teaches us that there are many ways to be strong, many ways to survive, many ways to thrive. Crix stood up. Thank you, all of you. This has been very helpful. I need to think about this more. As he left, Talva was waiting outside. She had been looking for her sibling. Crix, are you all right? You look troubled. I am thinking, Crix said, about humans, about strength, about memory. They walked together across the grounds as the last light faded from the sky. The humans confuse me, Crix admitted. They are physically weaker than us. They have shorter lifespans. They have no natural weapons or defenses. But they survived. They reached the stars. They earned their place in the coalition, and I am starting to think their memories are part of why. How so? Talva asked. Because they learned from everything. Every experience, good or bad, teaches them something. They do not discard anything. They are like collectors. They gather all their experiences and use them to build themselves into something stronger. Talva considered this. That is a good way to think about it. They are not burdened by their memories. They are built by them. Yes, Crix said. Exactly. The scars make them stronger. The pain makes them wiser. The losses make them more compassionate. It is strange. But it is also impressive. Do you still think they should forget? Talva asked. Crix was quiet for a long moment. No, I think if they forgot, they would not be human anymore. And the galaxy needs humans to be human. We need their kind of strength. It is different from ours, but it is real. Above them, the stars began to appear in the darkening sky. Somewhere out there was Haven's Gate rebuilt now. And somewhere in human space, memorials stood with names carved in stone. Names like Day and Jiwoo. Names of people who were gone but not forgotten. Never forgotten. That was the human way. The emergency alarms shattered the quiet morning at the academy. Hyun was in his office when the lights shifted to red and the warning systems activated. His military training kicked in immediately. He grabbed his emergency pack and rushed into the corridor. Students were flooding out of classrooms, confusion and fear evident in their varied forms of expression. The announcement came through the communication system in multiple languages. Spatial anomaly detected. Critical system failure. All personnel begin emergency evacuation procedures immediately. This is not a drill. Hyun's mind raced through the possibilities. Spatial anomalies were rare but dangerous. They could tear apart structures, disrupt power systems, and create unpredictable hazards. The academy was designed to withstand most emergencies, but nothing was completely safe. He saw Captain Sora organizing security personnel near the main exit. She caught his eye and waved him over. "Hyun, we have a problem. The anomaly is affecting multiple sectors. Life support is failing in the eastern wing. We have fires in the lower levels. And the main evacuation routes are blocked by structural damage." "Casualties?" Hyun asked. "Unknown. We are trying to account for everyone, but communications are spotty. Some areas are cut off completely." Another human teacher, Rin, joined them. Her face was calm but focused. "I have been coordinating with other faculty. We need to organize search teams. There are students trapped in collapsed sections." The three humans moved together with practiced efficiency, their past experiences guiding them. Around them, other species were responding according to their natures. The Vraxian security officers were acting on pure instinct, moving fast and decisively. The Florian medical staff were setting up triage stations. The Drellian engineers were assessing damage with their multiple eyes, seeing problems from every angle. But as the emergency developed, patterns began to emerge. The predator species, despite their physical advantages, struggled when situations changed unpredictably. They were trained for direct action, for clear threats and obvious solutions. But this crisis was chaotic and constantly shifting. Hyun found himself naturally falling into a leadership role, not because he was the strongest or the fastest, but because he had seen chaos before. He had lived through Haven's Gate. He remembered every lesson from that nightmare. "Listen to me," he said to a group of mixed-species rescue workers. "The situation will keep changing. Do not commit to any single plan. Stay flexible. Expect things to go wrong. When they do, adapt. Draw on every difficult experience you have ever had. Use those memories. They will guide you." A young Vraxian officer looked at him with respect. "Yes, sir." Crix and Talva were in the student dormitory when the anomaly hit. The building shuddered violently, and they heard screams from other rooms. Crix's instincts told him to run, to get out, to escape. But Talva grabbed his arm. "Wait, we need to help others." "The protocols say to evacuate immediately," Crix argued. "The protocols did not account for this. Look." She pointed down the corridor. Several smaller students, including Florian younglings and a Thelian child, were huddled in confusion. They did not know which way to go. "We are predators," Talva said. "We are fast and strong. We can guide them out." Crix hesitated, then nodded. They gathered the young ones and began moving toward the exits. But when they reached the main stairwell, they found it blocked by collapsed ceiling panels. Emergency lighting flickered. Smoke was beginning to seep up from below. "This way," Crix said, leading them toward a secondary exit. But that route was also blocked. Panic began to set in among the younger students. "We are trapped," one of the Florian younglings said, their flower-like appendages drooping in fear. Crix looked at Talva. They were trained for hunting and fighting, not for this. They did not know what to do when there were no clear paths, no obvious solutions. They could feel themselves starting to freeze, instinct failing them in an unfamiliar situation. Then they heard a voice calling from down another corridor. "Over here. This way." It was Hyun. He appeared through the smoke, calm and focused. Behind him were Sora and Rin. "The main routes are blocked," Hyun said quickly, "but I remember the building schematics. There is a maintenance access shaft that connects to the service tunnels. It was designed for situations exactly like this. Follow me." "How do you know it is still safe?" Crix asked. "I do not. But it is our best option. Trust me." They worked together with coordination that came from experience. The debris shifted. Talva pulled Crix free. His leg was injured but not broken. "Can you move?" Hyun asked. "Yes," Crix said through gritted teeth. "Then move. Now." They got through the shaft just as another section of ceiling came down behind them. The service tunnels were narrow but stable. Hyun led them through a maze of passages, remembering the layout, adapting when routes were blocked, always finding another way. "How do you know where to go?" Talva asked as they navigated another turn. "I studied the Academy blueprints when I first arrived," Hyun said. "Old habit from my military days. Always know your environment. Always have backup routes. Always expect things to go wrong." "You remember all this from studying blueprints?" Crix asked, amazed. "Humans have good memory for spatial layouts when survival depends on it," Hyun said with a slight smile. "Comes from being hunted by predators for millions of years. We learn to remember every cave, every tree, every escape route." They finally emerged into one of the main evacuation zones. Medical teams were treating injured. Faculty were accounting for students. The immediate crisis was passing. Captain Sora found them as they arrived. "Good work getting those students out. The Eastern Wing is being evacuated now. The engineering teams have stabilized the anomaly. We are going to be okay." As the adrenaline faded, Crix realized something important. The humans had not been the strongest responders. The Vraxians were faster. The Drellians had better spatial awareness. The Thelians were more resistant to environmental hazards. But the humans had been the most effective. Because they remembered. They drew on every past crisis, every learned lesson, every survived disaster. They adapted when others froze. They improvised when protocols failed. They used their painful memories as tools for survival. Over the next few hours, as the situation was brought fully under control, the students gathered in the main assembly hall. Faculty conducted roll calls and medical checks. Miraculously, there were no fatalities, many injuries, but everyone would survive. The academy director, a wise Thelian named Elder Kesson, addressed the gathered crowd. "Today we faced a serious crisis. We survived because we worked together, because we relied on each other's strengths, and because we had experienced individuals who knew how to respond. I want to particularly acknowledge our human staff, whose experience and adaptability saved many lives today." After the formal remarks, Crix approached Hyun. The young Vraxian walked with a limp, his injured leg bandaged. "Teacher Hyun, I want to thank you. You saved my life today. You saved many lives." "I did what needed to be done," Hyun said simply. "No," Crix insisted. "You did more than that. You used your memories, your experience. Everything you survived before, you used it today. You turned your pain into armor, into tools, into strength." He paused, then said something surprising. "I want you to take a photograph of me, of now, of this moment." Hyun raised an eyebrow. "Why?" "Because this is the moment I survived. This is the moment I learned that I could face something terrifying and come out the other side. This is the moment I understood what you have been trying to teach us." Talva joined them. "I want to be in the picture too." Hyun pulled out his datapad and took the photograph. Two young Vraxians, dirty and injured but alive, standing with their human teacher in the aftermath of disaster. "You do not keep pictures of what broke you," Talva said softly, repeating words Hyun had said before. "You keep pictures of what you survived." "Now you understand," Hyun said. Over the following days, as the academy was repaired and routines returned to normal, something changed in the student body. More and more students, especially the Vraxians, started creating their own collections of photographs. Not just happy moments, but difficult ones too. Moments of challenge. Moments of fear overcome. Moments of survival. Crix kept his photograph from the disaster prominently displayed in his quarters. When other students asked about it, he explained what he had learned. "Humans are not stronger than us in body," he would say, "but they are stronger in memory. They remember everything, and they use those memories to survive new challenges. They turn their scars into armor, their pain into wisdom, their losses into lessons." "Is that not a weakness?" some would ask. "I thought so too," Crix would admit. "But I was wrong. It is a different kind of strength. And the galaxy needs all kinds of strength." In his office one evening, Hyun looked at his collection of photographs, old ones from Haven's Gate, newer ones from the Academy. The image of Day still hurt to look at. It always would. But now next to it was the picture of Crix and Talva, A new generation learning an old lesson. Pain could be transformed. Memories could be weapons. Survival could be remembered and honored. Rin stopped by his office. I heard about what Crick said, about turning scars into armor. He is a smart kid, Hyun said. He learned quickly. They all did, Rin said.
Because you showed them.
You did not just tell them about human resilience. You demonstrated it. You lived it. Hyun nodded slowly. That is the only way to teach it. Humans do not just talk about remembering. We do it. We live with our memories every day, the good and the bad, and we show others that it can be done. Do you think other species will adopt this approach? Rin asked. Some might. Others will not. Vraxians will probably always prefer their cleansing rituals, and that is fine. But now they understand why humans keep pictures, why we remember, why we cannot forget, even when forgetting would be easier. He looked at the photograph of Crix and Talva again. We remember the things we survived, because those memories prove we can survive. And in a galaxy full of challenges and dangers, that proof is precious. It is armor. It is strength. It is what makes us human. Outside his window, the academy lights began to come on as evening fell. Students from hundreds of worlds walked between buildings, each carrying their own stories, their own memories, their own ways of being strong. And among them, a few Vraxian cubs carried data pads with their own photographs, learning to remember, learning that survival was worth honoring, learning that the human way, strange as it was, had its own wisdom. In a galaxy of countless species and infinite diversity, there was room for many kinds of strength. And now just a little more understanding of what it meant to be human, to remember, to survive, to keep the pictures.